Qing's prose moral theory, one of the layman's philosophies. What is morality? According to Wang Di's note, Tao is the origin of things, virtue is the origin of things, and they are obtained from them. This explanation is very clear and thorough, and it is worthy of our adoption. However, according to the following meaning, the word can be directly changed to the word gain means gain, benefit. People can take advantage of it, but if there is no benefit, who is happy to do it? It's just that people and people's situations are different, so it is difficult for them to agree on their interests. Not only can they not be consistent, but sometimes there may be conflicts. You may gain something by doing this, but there is no benefit for me by doing what you do. He does it for us. Those who have the same reason may even suffer from it. In this case, how can we set a standard that everyone is willing to follow? If we humans are equal, this problem will not rise. This is a problem, because what is good for you is actually good for me, even if the degree is slightly different, just like the current market ruler is compared to a full ruler. But after all, there are limited people. And it does not matter if we humans are free. It is good for you, the author. It's good for me to follow it. Although everyone's reasons are different and their results are not the same, they are all above morality and the problem is solved invisibly. Unfortunately, this is the case in our real world. It is unequal and difficult to be free. So the strong will use their advantages to force or trick everyone into sharing what they have got, and the weak will be forced or tricked into sharing what others have got. That is using power as a basis. Basic moral concepts. The concentration of power is a failure of human wisdom. From now on, a general can command millions of soldiers, and an emperor can rule billions of subjects. We don't need to wonder what magic spells the general or emperor has. The reason for debunking the zoetrope is quite simple. They are nothing more than taking advantage of the blind obedience of the masses. On the country road in the evening, don't we often see a 12 or 13-year-old shepherd driving a large group of cattle and sheep, and a 70 or 80-year-old old man driving a large group of chickens and ducks? Cattle, sheep, chickens, and ducks all don't know how to think. When they see a few running forward, they will follow them in a group. Therefore, the shepherd boys have no trouble catching up. They don't need to tell where they are going, let alone explain their purpose. What is the reason for the land? As for the cattle, sheep, chickens, and ducks who are moving forward, it is enough to recognize the direction of the whip and bamboo pole, and everyone moves forward in a daze. To move forward, you don't have to imagine the rights and obligations here, and what the glory is, the great mission, whether it is about divine responsibility, etc. This is the stupidity of animals. The sage Mencius was afraid of being inferior to humans, so he urged herdsmen to adopt similar methods to deal with the people. That is to say, the people can let it go, but they cannot make it known. But unfortunately, people still know how to use their brains and are eager to know. Over time, even the shepherds felt that it was impossible not to know. So they slightly modified the words of the sages and changed them to the people can know what is going on, but they cannot use it. You know why? However, seeking knowledge is similar to smoking opium. The pain is getting worse and worse, but knowing it is not enough. Later, there is a tendency to force the pastor to tell the reason. So the pastor also felt the fear of the power of the crowd. So he had to select a few cunning people from the crowd and promise some benefits. Everyone agreed on an eloquent statement of false reasons, and the one with the loudest voice was recommended to read it in public. As a result, a few people who thought they had the best hearing started to move forward without hesitation, and most of the people in the group were not far behind. When the march is singing strangely, if anyone dares to stop and think for a moment, everyone will laugh at him and attack him, making sure that everyone follows his blindly. So I say that compared to the ability of human beings to blindly obey and that of cattle, sheep, chickens, and ducks, the difference is only 50 steps and 100 steps, and the ability to force others to blindly obey is even greater. The only difference is that humans know how to take care of themselves. To cover up shame, all kinds of blind obedience are covered with the moral reputation of loyalty to the king, patriotism, salvation, benefit to others, etc. Let us not underestimate this act of blind obedience. All the good stories in history are caused by it. We have to believe that the most praised so-called gentlemen, the ideal moral men, are the most courageous and obedient guys at the time, because everything they received was the gain of others. They did not enjoy moral benefits but suffered moral losses. Therefore, after they made the sacrifice, those who had taken advantage of them quickly praised them and did not care about the many losses. They imagined the spiritual happiness coming from behind is of course meant to encourage those who follow. For example, a gentleman is indeed poor, but he should not be too poor. If he cannot afford even a cup of food or drink, and refuses to eat the food he comes to, shouldn't he be starving to death? As for the word theft, it is not allowed to have a shadow in the mind of a gentleman. Therefore, after the doughty rich man saw them starving to death, he was happy to donate a few coffins in order to encourage the rising stars. If all the poor people in the society were willing to do this, wouldn't they be able to hire fewer door guards and bodyguards? The effectiveness of morality is like the spring lock on the rice warehouse and cool stack, locking up the wealth of a few rich people and selling out the lives of many poor people. The bloody smell of this kind of morality is very strong, and it is easy to say but difficult to keep. So virtuous people can be talked about in good words. After the morality of cannibalism was regarded as a good name, the general socialites started to talk about it and abide by it. Not only did they abide by it, but they also abided by it to the extreme. The students in the lower class couldn't wait for their girlfriends to come, and they didn't run away until the tide came up. It was said that they were keeping their word. Song Boji, as the wife of the monarch, would rather die in the fire cave than be disrespected by others. This kind of thing is really brave and tragic. There is also loyalty to the emperor to the extent that the emperor wants his ministers to die, but the ministers will not be loyal until they die, and filial piety to the extent that the father wants his son to die, but the son will not be filial to die. This morality of loyalty and filial piety becomes ferocious and terrifying. For example, like King Zhou, who wanted to read people's hearts. Beiping immediately dug it out and presented it for a thorough inspection. When Xiangong got angry, Che Sheng immediately hanged himself to death. This is undeniably tragic and deplorable, not to mention the women who have always been accustomed to pursue moral pleasures. They have been obsessed with the three obediences since they were young, and they never dare to doubt anything a man says. For example, it is a woman's righteousness to have one child, so they feel that if they have two children, it is really unforgivable. Once the husband dies, they are afraid that if they live for a long time, there will be a chance of losing their integrity, so they quickly hang themselves or passively into the well. It was desolate enough for a singer like Guan Panpan to live alone in the Yanzi Tower, but the poet Bai Juyi thought it was not enough and cruelly blamed him for not accompanying him until death. So Guan Panpan surrendered his life on the Yanzi Tower. In this way, poet Bai's instigation to commit suicide was finally successful, and the general virtuous people in the society were relieved and satisfied. There are really many such morals. I am a layman through and through. I never like to listen to profound and mysterious theories, and I have no sacred and noble feelings. I don't know what kind of spiritual happiness Obuyuki Baki had when he kept his word and etiquette, and how he abided by the law until he died. I also don't know what kind of spiritual comfort he had on Beacon Shensheng's loyalty and filial piety. I just think that to be moral and abide by morality, we must always produce some effects that are beneficial to people. Even if it does not benefit everyone, it must be able to benefit the majority of people quite a bit. Only in this way can it be consistent with the original meaning of the word morality, even if everyone can get it from it. I believe that human beings, like other animals, have a natural desire to live and die, and to seek happiness and enlightenment. This is just as the utilitarianists said, happiness is our only requirement, and morality is nothing more than a tool to achieve happiness. If the consequences of this morality are to cause us to lose our lives or happiness, then this morality must not be true morality, and it is reasonable to give up as soon as possible. If someone organizes a meeting to encourage morality and promotes unsuitable morals, his crime is not as serious as men stealing women from prostitution. At this point, some people may want to ask, it is good that morality should make people abide by it, but there are several benefits. When you cannot have your cake and eat it too, which one should be chosen first? Is it reasonable? For example, if they lose their lives, but they gain a reputation of loyalty, filial piety, trustworthiness, etc. Can't they be said to be benefits? Therefore, what is beneficial and what is disadvantageous? What is real benefit and what is false benefit will become a matter of opinion. I am not a member of the Morality Committee, nor am I the chairman of the Interest Assessment Committee, so I do not need to stipulate morality and immorality in a written constitution. But I think this principle should be an eternal truth. That is, the greatest benefit is to benefit the survival of mankind. The second is to benefit a better survival of mankind. If someone takes death as a benefit, then what he said it is the truth of ghosts, and it is not what we want to obtain. But we can also die for the sake of gain. If this gain fails, we will no longer be able to survive. We will not hesitate to risk our lives to obtain such benefits, hoping to achieve the goal of surviving from death. If these kinds of behaviors, such as loyalty, filial piety, trustworthiness, etiquette, etc., are indeed beneficial to human survival, then we should consider it as reasonable morality and uphold it for fear of failing. If there are various other behaviors that have good reputations, such as loyalty, filial piety, trustworthiness, etiquette, etc., but are actually harmful to the happiness or even lives of most people when practiced, then we cannot sacrifice ourselves or others for the sake of such false reputations. What we seek is the reality of morality, not the name of morality. Moreover, when we find that its name does not live up to its name, we must ruthlessly tear off the moral mask it wears. We must clearly distinguish the right and wrong, good and evil, beauty and ugliness of everything in the world. This is the most basic work that is most beneficial to our human existence, and it is also the most reasonable moral obligation. We need wisdom. I believe that in the future all the struggles in the world will be between wisdom and stupidity, not between the British and the Germans, or the Chinese and the Japanese. Another thing I want to say is that true morality must come from everyone's inner requirements. It is easy to obtain and not difficult to practice. Unfortunately, people in the world often think they are smart and refuse to think deeply. They consider themselves to be members of a certain faction of the Communist Party, after hearing a few theories that are not 3 or 4, and they think they are all-rounders after learning a few half-understood terms. So I say that stupidity is the real enemy of morality. Human beings are self-interested, but self-interest is not a moral burden. A person who truly knows how to benefit himself can often also benefit others. Edison was self-interested. When he was working as a newsboy on the train, he secretly set up a chemistry laboratory on the train for his own interests. Finally, the phosphorus tablets fell to the ground and caught fire and he was slapped. From then on, he became deaf and could concentrate on research. If he was focused on being loyal to his duties, shouldn't he raise his voice and shout a few more times, "No, there's something wrong on the road. Look at the 7-point card for a beautiful night." The newspaper? Dante was self-interested. He only wrote the Divine Comedy to vent his inspiration, but he did not lose sleep over the Dark Ages, and carefully conceived an outline of a Renaissance plan. Confucius was self-interested. He knelt down to Nancy because he wanted to use her to implement his own way, but he refused to really care about her being an agent or something like that. He publicized her true ways of being a husband and her genuineness everywhere. I know that many literati write immortal masterpieces because they are extremely poor. If they think about the loneliness of the literary world and write debts for the sake of the entire literary world or the entire human race, then their altruistic kindness is admirable. But such kindness may not necessarily make them able to write. What a good thing to do! It is said that the person who pays most attention to altruistic ethics is Sakyamuni, and the objects he benefits are universal to all living beings, not only human beings. He once cut meat and fed it to eagles, no matter whether he said "I love you" after eating the meat or not, and whether it was worth the cost of cutting to death and giving up teaching and living. He did it in order to become a Buddha. No longer human, we are human beings, and people's altruism comes at a cost. Because if we do not also benefit others, we cannot benefit ourselves more. If we benefit others, we will benefit ourselves at the same time. It is not possible to cut off the flesh to feed the eagle. Not only is it impossible, but if there is an urgent need, I will cut off the flesh to heal myself. But I hope that when sentencing, the eagle will suffer as little pain as possible, and that after the harvest, it will not be accused of being reactionary and outdated. This is my moral concept. As for if you eat your own waste meat and blame others for not cutting the meat to feed the eagles, then I still don't consider this as a virtue. And the others are also despicable and not very high.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.